Hi guys, welcome back to the Sun Devil Learning Lab. I am Miss Martinez and I'm so excited for you guys to be tuned in and ready to learn today. So I am pretty sick right now, so I'm sorry if my voice is a little scratchy. I'm going to try my best to speak as loud as I can and get through this lesson for you guys. I'm actually really excited for today because we are going to be following a format that I used to do when I was younger, and I absolutely loved it. It was my favorite thing to do. You're going to have some choices. We're going to do a read aloud, and I'm just so excited for you guys to be tuned in and watching today. So you are there today. So our standards and objectives. Our standard for the day. Describe the relationship between a series of historical events, scientific ideas or concepts, or steps and technical procedures in a text, using language that pertains to time, sequence, and cause and effect. So our objective, I can make connections between events, ideas, or concepts in a text. All right, so now we have our standard objective for the day. What is our agenda? Well, today we are going to be reading a story on Humphrey the Lost Whale. It is a true story. There's actually a movie made about it, so it's a pretty cool story as well. The second part is we are going to pretend like you are there in the story. And then the third part is we're just going to go over what you learned. So what we're going to do for when we do the read aloud is I want you actively learning and actively a part of what we're doing today. So for the read aloud, all your expectation is that you are listening and ready to write down all these facts and examples. So for example, you can do a flow chart like figure below. So you can pause the video if you want, if this is going too fast, but what this flowchart sample has is you'll write the title of the book, the setting, the main characters, what happens in the opening, so the beginning, what happens as the main idea, what the resolution is, and what the closing is. That is just one flowchart that you can do. Or you can do a beginning, middle, and end flowchart and just show what happens in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. You're more than welcome to do that if that's a lot easier. You're also able to do a timeline if that is super quick for you to just write down days or the events that are happening in order. Feel free to do that. The most important part of this lesson today is that you are taking notes in a way that you can report on what happened in the story. So you're going to be telling the story in your own lens. So when you're reading, making sure that you are writing down any important dates that are listed, any important facts, make sure you're putting the timeline that is happening in the story because again, this is a true story and we're making connections to this. And also, if you feel more comfortable, you can write notes in order. You can write in as 1, 2, 3, 4, and just keep going. Whatever you are most comfortable with, I'd rather you make the choice and make it so that you're comfortable with your learning. So that is the flow chart that you can use right there. That is just one of the examples. Again, your options are beginning, middle, and end, a timeline, notes. Just make sure that you're putting the title, setting, and main characters that are in the story. And again, if I'm going too fast, go back in the video and restart it or go back to whatever you missed for the important dates. It's super important that you get every single part of the story because you are going to be reporting like you are there. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a sneak peek for you to keep in mind when we are reading the story of who you can pretend to be. Obviously, these are just my options. You can feel free to choose your own, but again, remember that you have to have these important facts that we're going to be reading about in your final part. So pretend you are there. You can be a news reporter, you can be Humphrey the Whale talking about your journey, or you can just pretend that you're someone in the crowd. Again, we're going to have some choices, but if that changes how you note take, that's okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and now I am back on me. Okay, perfect. So you can see me pretty well. Let me go ahead and shine a light on me. Oh, did not mean to take a picture. Okay. Okay, that works. Okay, so today we are going to be reading Humphrey the Lost Whale. It is a true story. It's actually by Wendy Takata and Richard Hall. The illustrations are by Hanako Wakiyama. And the publisher is actually Heian International Incorporated. So that is everything you need to know. So there's going to be a little bit of glare from the light. But that is Humphrey the Lost Whale right here. And we are going to read the story. So make sure that you have your pencil and paper and you're ready to go. If not, pause the video and go grab those really quick. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So here's the first page. This is the author right here. Right here is California. And that is where our story is going to be taking place. He is a whale, so Pacific Ocean in the California area. So that's something to note for your setting. We will go more in depth though. So again, Humphrey the Lost Whale. That is your title. All right, are we ready to learn? Let's go ahead and get started with the first page. Our story begins on a sunny day far out at sea. A pod of humpback whales was traveling south together for the winter. Humpback whales are magnificent creatures that sing beautiful songs to each other underwater. In the whole world, there are very few of them. So each one is quite special, and they are very intelligent. Every winter, they travel south. Every summer, they head north. And they always know the way. So, those are the whales. And they are humpback whales, so make sure that you note that Humphrey is a humpback whale. Okay, so can you make a connection to this? Have you heard of humpback whales? Do you know what they are? Have you heard this story before? Let's see. Let's go ahead and keep reading and see what happens. So whales can make mistakes too. One whale named Humphrey made a big one. He turned away from his friends and wandered under the Golden Gate Bridge into San Francisco Bay. Okay, so we're getting sort of our setting right here. So we are in the San Francisco Bay with Humphrey. This is Humphrey right here. And he is not supposed to be there. He actually wandered away from his friends. All right, so that's a little concerning. Have you ever wandered away from your parents and gotten super scared? I know that's happened to me where I was in the supermarket and I got super scared because I wandered away one time when I was younger. Or like when you're traveling in a car and your mom might make a wrong turn and you get lost for a little bit. It's a scary feeling. All right, so just going back, Humphrey is wandering under the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Everyone was surprised to see Humphrey in the bay. People don't get to see humpback whales very often because they usually stay in very deep ocean waters. It was a special treat to see one so close to the city of San Francisco. Humphrey was a spectacular sight. As long as a city bus and as big as 7 elephants put together, he would come up to breathe, appearing as if by magic. And people would stop whatever they were doing to watch him. Okay, so remember, he is still in San Francisco. That is him. Those are the people looking at him. And he's pretty big. He is as long as a city bus. And if you know elephants, he is about as big as 7 of them put together. It's pretty cool. Then Humphrey did something that no whale had ever done before. Instead of swimming back out to sea, he went the wrong way up the Sacramento River. Uh-oh. So he already started off wrong by heading to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. But on top of that, he went all the way up the Sacramento River. So make sure that you're noting this, his path. So he went from the San Francisco Bay to Sacramento River. Sacramento is spelled S-A-C-R-A-M-E-N-T-O. Okay. The big river became smaller and smaller as Humphrey traveled upstream. He was looking for the ocean, but it was very clear Humphrey was lost. Okay, so that's the Sacramento River that they drew. This is Humphrey the whale. This is him going more upstream and away from where he's actually supposed to be. And remember, all of his friends aren't near him, so it's just him. Okay. Hundreds of people came to see Humphrey in the river. They would stare out at the water, waiting for him to come up for air. Then with a big whoosh, his giant back would appear. And someone would shout, "There he is!" He was an amazing sight, but something was wrong. Whales are supposed to live in the salt water of the ocean, not the fresh water of rivers. A whale would die if it stayed in fresh water too long. Humphrey was in trouble. So no, Humphrey's in trouble. This is Humphrey right here. He is in the Sacramento River. Something to know is humpback whales have to have the saltwater oceans to survive, not the rivers like he's in. Everyone knew that Humphrey had to be turned back toward the ocean, but no one knew how to do that. After all, something like this had never happened before. The farther Humphrey went, the more worried people became. They wondered why whether he was getting anything to eat, whether he was getting sick, or whether he would beach himself in the river. One day, Humphrey squeezed under a tiny bridge. It was so small, no one could understand how he had done it. Now, he was really in trouble. He was trapped. Okay, something important to note. So he tried to go under that tiny bridge, and it got him even more trapped. So this is Humphrey, this is the bridge, and this is the crowd watching him. All right, so note that too, just that because he went under that tiny bridge, got him even more trapped than he was before in the Sacramento River. That's super important to note in your timeline or whatever notes you're taking. The river beyond the bridge was very shallow and narrow. It was so small, Humphrey could hardly turn around. There he was, a whale stuck in a tiny stream right in the middle of a farm field. It was hard to believe. Something had to be done to get him out of there fast. Humphrey looked sick. The scientists knew he would die if he didn't get back to the ocean. Time was running out. So there's Humphrey. And scientists are feeling panicky. They have to get him out before he dies because he, remember, cannot be in fresh river. He has to be in the salt water. The people trying to save Humphrey would have to move fast. The scientists, Coast Guard officers, and many others worked together to work out a plan to save him. They decided to bang long pipes together underwater and scare him down the river. At the same time, they would play a recording that would broadcast underwater the sounds of whales eating. Maybe Humphrey would be so hungry and lonely, he would swim towards the sound. So now we are in the problem solving part. People are trying to bang pipes together. They're trying to make sounds of whales that are eating to make him really excited to come back home. They're trying their best effort. So humans are trying their best effort to get Humphrey out of the river. Okay, so this front part right here, what we're seeing is them banging the pipes to move him and get him going. And then that is showing the sound that is trying to receive to him that whales are eating to get him to move towards that direction, because he could be hungry by now. They don't know what he was eating during this time, so he could be really hungry and looking for a source of food. So that is what is in the drawings. And again, make sure that you're noting what they're doing to try and get him out. It worked. Humphrey turned around and started swimming back down the river. Everyone was relieved, but the danger wasn't over yet. When Humphrey arrived at the little bridge, he stopped. He was afraid to go under it. He couldn't find a space big enough to get him through. People kept banging pipes, and Humphrey seemed flustered. What would he do? As the pipes kept clinging, Humphrey became angry. He rolled from side to side and thrashed his great tail. People stopped banging the pipes. Okay, so we're starting to see some good happen. He is turning back around on the river, but then he gets stuck back at that tiny bridge that he went under originally. Everybody was shocked he was able to get under. Now he's stuck. So then people thought that maybe banging the pipes again was a good idea to scare him, to get him to go back under, but it just made him upset. Okay. But Humphrey's friends wouldn't give up. They knew he had to get past that little bridge, and if they didn't, he would die in that river. The people trying to save him decided to make the space under the bridge bigger. They brought in a huge crane and worked through the night to clear away some old rails. Okay, pretty cool. So this is the crane that the humans brought in to help remove some of this, so that way he has a space to get through. So that's another part to add in your timeline, is they brought in a crane. So a crane is spelled C-R-A-N-E. Okay. Would Humphrey notice the difference? Well, the next day, the people began banging the pipes together. Clang, clang. The boat moved closer to Humphrey to urge him towards the bridge. This was his last chance, and everyone watched nervously. Okay, so they're still banging those pipes to scare him to go back under the bridge. There's some people watching, and that's Humphrey, and they're wondering if it's going to work. Humphrey bravely approached the bridge, but as he tried to swim under it, his head became lodged between the pilings. He frantically bobbed his head up and down, thrashed his tail to free himself. It was a terrible moment. People trying to save Humphrey thought it might be the end. Humphrey was stuck. Suddenly, Humphrey lifted one fin out of the water, almost touching the bridge. He twisted his body and broke free and swam through to the other side. All right, so he got stuck again, but then he figured out how to move to his side and to go through that little bridge, and he made it through. So how are you feeling? Pretty excited for Humphrey? All right, so there was a shout from the banks of the river. Then another and another, until everyone was cheering. Hooray for Humphrey, they shouted. He made it. Humphrey the lost whale was finally on his way back home. That's everybody cheering for Humphrey, and that's Humphrey right there. A whole fleet of boats and the clanging of pipes behind him helped Humphrey find his way down the river. Finally, Humphrey arrived at San Francisco Bay. So he got all the way back down the Sacramento River, and he's back to a starting point of San Francisco Bay. And they're still clanging those pipes behind him to keep him going. Humphrey spent one whole day happily swimming around the bay. He did tricks for people gathered along the shore to see him one last time. They oohed when he slapped his tail. They awed when he jumped into the air and belly flopped back into the water. Humphrey seemed to be saying goodbye and thank you to all of his friends who saved his life. So he's back in the bay, and that's him doing some tricks for the crowd. He's super happy. He knows that he's back and safe. They're on our final page. So the people had helped rescue Humphrey, and they also felt grateful. Humphrey had taught them a lot about humpback whales. He had also become a good friend. Many times during his ordeal, Humphrey could have simply flicked his tail and overturned boats carrying the people who were trying to help him, but he never did. He seemed to understand that they were his friends. Finally, in the late afternoon fog, Humphrey swam under the Golden Gate Bridge and back out to sea. Humphrey the whale had made it, and he was finally home. So that is the end of the story. And then we're going to have a couple notes that you can add to your timeline or add into any of your notes. And it's just about Humphrey. So Humphrey the whale entered San Francisco Bay on the night of October 10th, 1985. So for 26 days, he tried to find his way back to the ocean. He was 45 feet long and 40 ton, and he weighed 40 tons. So he traveled a total of 64 miles up the Sacramento River, and he finally ended up in the shallow irrigation system that was in the middle of a farm field. It took more than 500 people and $80,000 to rescue him. He finally made it back to the Pacific Ocean on November 4th of 1985, so the 26 days later. And since then, Humphrey actually comes back every summer to the Bay Area. In 1986, he was spotted near the Furlong Islands, which is about 30 miles off the coast of San Francisco. And biologists knew this because he has certain markings on his tail that help identify him. And so the last that he was seen was 1988, and he was really close to the shore than other humpback whales. And they think that he just likes to be near people. So that is the story of Humphrey the lost whale. Okay, so I'm going to move back to our screen so that we are back. Okay, and I'm going to take that light off me. That was a little rough on my face for a little bit. So, all right, so we read the great story of Humphrey the lost whale, and now you are going to pretend that you are there. So you have your whole timeline in front of you, you have your notes, you have plenty of information about the story to write it from your own perspective, or you can even, if you want to, draw it out. So you can be a news reporter, Humphrey the whale, or someone in the crowd. And you can draw the journey that if you're following him along as the crowd, you can draw it out. Just make sure you put like some captions so we know what we're seeing. If not, you can write a whole news report. You can pretend like you are Humphrey the whale and make up about how your journey was and all that good stuff. But overall, that is your exit ticket for the day. So our objective, we're making the connections between the events in the text, and this was on a historical event. So you are there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is my final video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your hard work and hard effort. I really appreciate how much you guys have been working with us, and I hope that you enjoyed it just like I did. So thank you again for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day, guys. Bye.